In this video, I am going to explain the use of final keyword in Java. Basically, there are three uses of final keywords: to declare the name constant, to prevent the method overriding, and to prevent inheritance. If we want to create constants, we can declare the variables as final such that its value cannot be reassigned. There are some points which we need to remember. They are: variable declared as final became constant, which means once value is assigned to them, it cannot be reassigned. Example, final int I is equal to 5. See, I have written final before the int I. For final variables holding reference of an object, then the assigned reference cannot be changed, but we can change the internal state of the referred object. This property is called non-transitivity. Example, we can add or remove items in final array list. And it is not mandatory to assign the value of final variables when it is declared. We can declare blank final variables, but it is necessary to assign their value once either in constructor or instance initializer block. And variable declared inside interfaces become implicitly final, and it is good practice to declare final variables in uppercases. Here I have created a class A, and in which there is a final variable I whose value I set it to 5. And in our main class I created the object of A and print the value of I. So the value of 5 will be printed. Let me run the program. As you can see, I5 is printed. Now let us try to change the value of I here. I is equal to 6. Now this I belongs to A object, so A object dot I is equal to 6. Now running the program again, you can see the Java cannot assign a value to a final variable. So once the value of I is initialized, it cannot be changed. Here you can see that if I remove the initialization of I, then running the program again, the variable I is not initialized in default constructor, so it must be initialized. So we see that the final variables must be initialized either at the declaration or at the constructor. So I will create a constructor of A class and declare the value of I here, and this time I will set I is equal to 2. Running the program again, everything is fine. Another way to initialize the final variable is in initializer block. So here you can write curly braces and set the value of I is equal to 3. Running the program again, everything is fine now. Method declared as final cannot be overridden. Here is an example which has two classes A and B, where A is a superclass and B extends A. I have a method show in a A class and I declared it as final. In class B, when I try to override the show method, the program will not compile and will throw the compile time error that it cannot override the final method. Some important points: sometimes there is performance advantage of using final method, that is, Java make small method inline, which basically means that internally Java bytecode for these method is copied to where these methods are called, which saves the method call overhead. This is the way Java determines call to this method at compile time, and that is why it is called early binding. So early binding is a way in which the call to a method is determined at compile time instead of runtime. And when Java determines call to a method at runtime, it is called late binding. This is how usually Java performs the call to a method. All methods in Java except inline methods are called at runtime. To show a final method, I have declared a show method as final inside the A class. And in class B, which is extending A, I override the show method. Now in our main class final keyword, I created the object of B and call the show method. Since the show method in class A is final, and when B tries to override it, the program will not compile. To show that, I will run the program. And as you can clearly see that the show in B cannot override show in A, overridden method is final. If we want to create a class that cannot be extended, we can make the class as final. Here is an example in which a class A is final and B tries to extend the A. The program will not compile, and though it can subclass the final class A. One other point: it is illegal to declare a class as both final and abstract, since abstract rely on the subclasses and a final class cannot be extended. To show the final class, I have created a class A and declared it as final. Here class B is extending our final class A. And in the main class, I have created the object of B and calling the show method. Now running the program here, the Java cannot inherit from final A. So you can see that we cannot extend the final classes.